Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Skipperis and I am the kinesiologist, and we're trying for the second time this morning to jump on with a beautiful live deep dive into quantum biology with Carrie Bennett, and we're just hoping that she can jump on. So I'm just going to grab her, hopefully for some reason or another, and get Carrie on this morning. Very excited to have this incredible woman who's had quite the mainstream journey. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can. Let's see if we can get this cranking this time. All right. Bear with us there, everybody. Sometimes it's one of those things. Okay. Yeah, I'm accepting you, Carrie, and for whatever reason, it's not allowing me. How bizarre is that? Strange. I am not sure what's happening with live this morning, ladies and gentlemen, but that is weird. Okay, so we may have to, let me just see. We may have to do this via Zoom and upload. So what we may do is we may do this interview via Zoom and upload. So we've got Carrie. Oh my God! I'm like, what the heck? Oh my God. I tell you, I think I might end up having like a heart attack over technology sometimes. Oh, it's just insane, isn't it?
It's insane. You know, it's like, it's such a blessing because I get to chat with you from across the world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like,
I have heard that before in the past, like someone's there, they're in the, like, what is going on here? It's something she can't join. So thank you so much for being on today. I'm a little bit starstruck actually, because I've been following you for quite some time, and I think the thing that sums up for me my connection to the work that you're now just amazingly putting out there is many years ago. I'm thinking maybe like 2004. Oh gosh, yeah, probably around 2004. Staying at a friend's place, and they live on the south coast in Australia in a place called Kiama, and they have like 180-degree views of the ocean, and wow. Just, you know, you sprint outside at dawn because you just don't want to miss that. And so beautiful. And I remember this particular morning I was standing outside with my friend, and this incredible, from one headland to another there was a rainbow, and it just reached. And not often you get to see the entire rainbow. And then next thing, it was a double rainbow, and we just stood there in awe, you know, of the color, right? And I just remember thinking, oh, the rainbow, look at it over there. And you think about all the stories about, you know, what's at the end of the rainbow, and that you can never kind of get to it. And I turned to my friend and I said, like, the only thing that helps us to see it is the little tiny crystalline water droplets in the air, and they're actually everywhere. And it just, like, it's actually everywhere, like the rainbow's around us. And she just burst into tears. It was like this realization that the rainbow really is everywhere.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard someone really put it that way, but it's absolutely true, right? We only think that it's where we can physically see it after a thunderstorm. Yeah. But it's here right now. It's beaming at me right now, and that's exactly right. And that rainbow, like, people think about what's at the end of the rainbow as what's most important, but it's what's in the rainbow itself that's such a gift to us, because we use that, right? We use those colors in so many ways. So that's so cool, Angela. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, look, it was literally, I felt like something changed in my brain when I had that realization. And that it changed something around this concept that we chase. You know, we're chasing something like the rainbow, and yet the whole time the rainbow is just, look, okay, the water droplets in the air give you the opportunity to, like a little lens, you know, to see something like a prism, like I've heard you speak before about, you know, a prism that you put in your window in your car, and you get to see the rainbow, and yet it's just giving you access to something that's literally all around us. So As soon as I fell upon your work and the work of Jack Cruz and, you know, fourth phase of water, and then I just kept falling down these rabbit holes of like, this is just extraordinary. So thank you again for being on here. Could you please give everyone an understanding of, you know, where you've come from, who you are, and what you're studying and researching now, what you're up to?
Sure. There's always something, right? There's always another layer. So like many people, well, you know, actually, frankly, I got into health and helping people with their health and health optimization because I didn't want to go to med school and I didn't want to go to grad school for microbiology. It just didn't feel like the right fit. I had that as an option after undergrad. And so I went to massage therapy school. And I kind of took a completely alternative route. So it was very much in a medical mindset in undergraduate school and very much an alternative health mindset with massage therapy school. And I did what I knew to do at the time. As a college athlete, I became a personal trainer. And I kind of just dove right into the world of what I thought was just trying to be supportive of my clients' health and their health goals. And, you know, I would say that throughout this journey, I've tried to come to like, what is foundational? Like, what is the human body asking for at that foundational level that it needs to feel like the thriving version that it really truly is? And so, you know, back at college, it's exercise. I have to have the perfect exercise strategy, right? And that's it. That's one layer, right? That's one layer. Massage, I have to make sure self-care and, you know, energy flow. And yes, true. But, you know, I was getting more and more challenging clients coming to me with complex cases. And then I myself had my own health journey where I dove into this insane world of exhaustion, yet insomnia, in leaky gut, and couldn't eat anything. And so I went down the nutrition rabbit hole, right? I got a master's degree in clinical nutrition, and none of it did what I wanted it to do, right? Like everything helped a little bit. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon the work of Dr. Jack Cruz, who you alluded to earlier, and then all of the researchers that he's presented in his work, that I realized I was missing such a huge aspect of what can optimize my health. And that is my light environment. I never thought that scrolling on a screen late at night was causing me any health challenges or health consequences. This was about 10 years ago, before that became, you know, before that really became more of a mainstream, well-known thing. I was just like, wait a second, light bulbs could be causing me harm. And so I really had to flip my mindset and recognize that light is information, because nature gives it to us in the rainbow. And that rainbow kind of varies in the blend and intensity from sunrise till solar noon back till sunset. And that is information for my brain and my body to organize my circadian rhythm, organize all the tasks my cell has to do. 100,000 of them every single second, every cell. And so when I started to recognize that the light was information and I was giving my brain and body the wrong light, junk light, confusing light, I started making a couple of key changes to my morning routine and my nighttime routine. And it was like within 3 days, I was a new person. It moved the needle faster than anything I thought possible. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. Let's figure out what exactly is going on, because that was amazing. And so that's when I dove down the quantum biology rabbit hole, and I've never left.
That's incredible. So you obviously went down the mainstream route of, you know, studying science, all those kind of things, becoming a natural therapist. Yeah. And, you know, I know for myself, even as a kinesiologist, like I've studied now I've been in this just shy of 20 years. And kinesiology is also a little bit on the woo-woo side of things, you know, but we dive into a little bit of nutrition, and we dive in a little bit of body work and a little bit of Bowen, a little bit of this and that. And even for myself, there are some things that, you know, you get extremely amazing one session results, and tweaking a bit of nutrition here for that person, amazing. And then there's also this, you know, that constant search that us, you know, we as people who are in that field and looking to help people, you just thinking, what is that? That there's some buffer here where people are just not getting the results. And what is that? And then when I came across your work, I just thought, this is incredible. I've always had a sense of, at nighttime, almost feeling, my whole life, almost feeling affronted by having too much light on. And if, like, to the point where I'll put shawls over lights, and because I just, and then once I dove into this information, I realized, oh my God, that's why, like, on some level, my body's telling me too much, like it's too much light. So, now I'm slowly going through the process of changing up my light bulbs and just keeping things as dim as I possibly can. I literally shower almost in the dark and find myself feeling so drowsy by the time I get out of the shower and it's time to start moving to bed. You're like, I feel like I've had, like, some type of sleep tablet. The body is just responding to that change in light. So obviously the light of sunrise, sunset, no light whatsoever, that has a huge effect on the body, right? Can you explain more about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all over our body, but especially in the eyes and on the skin, we have sensors for light, the receptors for light. They're called opsins, and we have certain opsins for different colors of light. And we've really keyed in on one particular frequency of light, frequency range of light. We've keyed in on the we that have been around for millennia, the we that have been around ever since we's have been here on this planet, have keyed in on the blue wavelength of light as helping us, our bodies, tell time. So what I began to see was that before the sun rises, for all intents and purposes, there's the blue light that's coming that we would get from the rainbow if we split it up through a prism. That blue light is not intense enough to start to trip my sensors, to start to make those melanopsin receptors go off. But as soon as the sun breaks the horizon at sunrise, all of a sudden the intensity of the blue light is such that the receptors in my eyes start to say, oh, blue light, start of the day, it's morning, Carrie's day is starting. And there's a direct pathway between the backs of my eyes where I'm catching these colors of light and the hypothalamus in my brain. It's called the retinohypothalamic tract. So essentially I'm capturing photons of blue light, and that blue light is slowly increasing in amount and intensity from sunrise until solar noon when the sun is at its high point. And then that blue light goes away in intensity until at sunset. Again, for all intents and purposes, there's no blue light in my environment. So it was the perfect light frequency or color to be able to tell time because of its predictable changes and increase from sunrise till the high point back to sunset. And so that's what my brain and my circadian rhythm cued in on, and was then said, okay, it's morning time. So what do we need to optimize for Carrie's survival in the morning? Well, let's make some cortisol. Let's make sure she's revved up for the day. That actually starts when my hypothalamus pituitary communicates with the mitochondria in my adrenal gland. They make pregnenolone that can then become any of the steroid hormones, right? So that it starts off this whole steroid hormone pathway from cortisol to progesterone to DHEA. All of those really start with this morning light signaling. I also have the ability through certain amino acids in my eyes that swim back there called aromatic amino acids. When they get a certain intensity of light, when the sun's a little higher in the sky, those aromatic amino acids become things like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, right? They become really key neurochemicals in my brain. And so basically I started to realize that I was never getting the signal to start my day. So no wonder my cortisol was flatlined. I was never getting the signals to create things like serotonin and dopamine. We can also create beta endorphin. We can create chemicals in our brain and also in our tissues that help with fat burning. No wonder I felt puffy and bloated and unmotivated and just exhausted all the time. I wasn't getting the signals, the information, or the energy from that light to do those, convert those pathways in my body. And so once I started to get out there consistently and get this signaling in play, it happened quick, right? My brain was like, oh yeah, this is what you're supposed to be in. This is the light that you were designed to live in. Now that you're getting it, the body was really quick to optimize all of this circadian function. And I've lived a circadian lifestyle ever since. I don't want to go back.
So to me, it almost like, I imagine it, you know, to me, there's this huge epidemic of people who are either extremely exhausted, no energy, no motivation. And I'm talking like people in their teens and early 20s now are coming in, and they can't get out of bed and just dragging themselves through life. But at the same time, they're also experiencing extreme anxiety, you know, just depression, all those kinds of things. So you can imagine, like, so I'm imagining that spike in cortisol because of the consistent screen time, particularly over the last 3 years, where we're at home a lot and we're doing all of our coursework suddenly on screens. And then if we weren't on screens there, we might have been watching television or whatever it is. So can you explain to me a little bit how that would be impacting people too? Like, just our lifestyle dramatically changed in the last 3 years, more so.
Yes. In the last 3 years, more so than ever, we are on screens, right? My career during COVID, the gym that I owned, right, when I was training, that gym, it shut down, right? I had to literally transform my business, like many other people did, onto screens. With screens, it's a couple of things, right? Number one, these screens do have a very intense wavelength of blue light that does stimulate dopamine. So there is an addictive quality, right? There is an addictive quality to the screens. But we're never getting it from nature. We're never getting the cycle blend of the sunlight stimulating the circadian rhythm, optimizing the hormone pathways in the body, stimulating a balanced blend of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, noradrenaline, all of these chemicals that work together. And so we're really just burning these dopamine tracks, and without having any circadian rhythmicity to it. And we're doing it late into the night even. And when we stare at a screen like this that has this intense amount of blue light after sunset, instead of making melatonin like my pineal gland it wants to do, I'm again making a whole nother round of cortisol. It's like, oh shit, where was my sleep? I got to start the day all over again, right? Because you get another surge of cortisol. So talk about anxiety, right? The brain doesn't know what time of day it is. We don't know what tasks we need to optimize. There's a really underlying level of anxiety that's happening that people feel, that this is just almost always on edge, is what people are telling me they're experiencing. And it has a lot to do with the light signaling. Without knowing the time of day and with sending the wrong signals to the brain, or this continuous artificial signal all day long, it's super stressful. Not to mention, unfortunately, that these screens, they're LED-based screens, which means that they turn, in order to save energy, these lights, including overhead bulbs, turn on and off. They are not perceivable to my naked. If ever you see a television screen or a light bulb, like an LED light bulb, you'll see it flickering like this all the time. So can you imagine like what my nervous system is perceiving when I'm staring at a screen that's doing this all day long, and I'm not getting the correct timing and circadian signals into my eyes, into my brain to organize all my tasks? It's a recipe. Like, even thinking about that just gives me some anxiety, right? Just like, that's just so intense, right? Like, holy cow. So you can only imagine what we're experiencing when we don't realize that our screens and our bulbs are signaling to us in this way.
Yeah, I actually have this strange, I don't know if it's just movies or not, but I have this strange feeling that there's a torture based on flickering light. I feel like there literally is one.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm certain.
But yeah, that's exactly right. And you're right. Often you could be trying to video something, and there's a screen in your sort of view, and you'll actually see it flickering up and down. But it's funny how we actually can't perceive it at the time, right? It's interesting. So fascinating. So I'm imagining then, so the third thing that I'm noticing happening with people is, not only like issues with sleep, they can't sleep, or then once they do go to sleep, it's quite, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, they're now finally wanting to sleep. So they're in bed all day, and then things are getting worse and worse. Then on top of that, they've got really bad guts. And I'm understanding more and more that there's actually this incredible connection between light and the bacteria in the gut. Like, can you explain that to us a little bit more?
Absolutely. The gut microbiome is so key, but it's only been studied from one perspective. What am I eating that influences my gut? But what we know is that like I could shine red light therapy on my gut, light, and I could change my gut microbiome. I could travel from here to Mexico, and based on the light and the food that's available in that location, I can change my gut microbiome. Yeah. So my gut microbiome will change in my geographic location. It'll be different in the middle of winter, where it's darker and colder, food is more scarce, carbohydrates are scarce. It'll be different in the winter than it is in the summer. And so we've been really kind of short-sighted in terms of thinking that the only way that the microbiome responds is with food. Yeah. It is very keyed in on the light signaling that's happening to our own circadian rhythms. That's getting communicated to the gut microbiome as well, and they are also then responding accordingly. And so these days I say that people live in perpetual summer. They live where it's always like 70 degrees and sunny from sunrise until 10 p.m. or even later, right? Because you can put on that artificial light at any time. And so that's also another very confusing signal to not only the gut microbiome, but also then to the regeneration pathways that my body is looking to use and heal with at night when I sleep.
Exactly. So I'm thinking to myself, is it true then that depending on what part of the world you're living in, your gut microbiome would be getting completely different information? And then I think about something that I recall Jack Cruz saying about, say you live, you know, in a particular part of America, and then you eat a piece of fruit that's been grown in a completely different light source. Like he even talks about, like, you know, eating foods from your area and how that's even more powerful for the gut microbiome because it's not confusing and all that kind of thing. Like, do you think that there's truth in that?
Absolutely, because they're designed to optimize themselves based on light signaling. And there's no UV light. In Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I live, in December, there is no UV light strong enough to grow any produce whatsoever outside. So my bacteria is adjusting, my gut microbiome is adjusting to different types of foods. All of a sudden then I give it a pineapple and a banana, and it's like, does not compute. Wait a second, we weren't prepared to digest this and utilize this. Not to say that those are bad foods. It's just a circadian mismatch, a light mismatch, a seasonal mismatch to what the light signaling in my environment was telling my microbiome.
Yeah, and I found it even more interesting that he spoke about a banana and the fact you ate a banana inside or ate a banana out in certain types of sunlight, or like that your experience of the banana would be completely different. I think it's like, I think more and more that I fall down this rabbit hole, I understand that we are so complex. Like the system is so sensitive. And you know, it blows my mind.
It's sensitive, but it's simple, right? It's looking for signals. So we just have to, it's really looking for key signals. So like if we give it the signals that our environment, our natural environment is giving us. So if I touch my feet to the earth and get the electron signal of the earth, if I key in on the sunlight or the natural light, doesn't have to be sunny, right? Because Michigan is not sunny all the time. It's sunny today, woo, but it's not sunny all the time. So if I'm keying in, then I have these magnetic receptors. The water in my body can sense the geomagnetism of the earth's magnetic field. If I consistently give my body signals from nature, it optimizes itself. And then I just kind of have to live within those laws of nature, okay? So I'm not going to eat a bunch of tropical fruit in the middle of winter. And I actually don't crave that. Like I used to, you know, eat based on calories or carbs, or, you know, like I did all the diets. And now I realize that I've really keyed in on seasonal eating. And what does my body crave right now? Dandelion greens, because they're just about starting to come out right now. Like I can't wait for the next dandelion greens to come out because it's a circadian signal to my environment. And so I think it's so cool when you start to realize it's not about just one perfect diet for everyone. It's about keying in on the signals in your environment, lining yourself up with those signals, and your body knows what to do.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. So that would mean that people who have really intense gut issues, whatnot, could try starting to look at, okay, what's being grown locally, what's around me, check out what's happening with their local farmers, and start to try eating in that way. Even if it's just slowly but surely starting to switch over that kind of eating, that they technically should start to see some results, I would think.
Yeah, so I would say sync up with your circadian rhythm. So get outside in the morning, right? That the changes that happen with the morning sunlight are really key. So if you can start to get those frequencies and those changes and sync up, step one. Step two, go to the local farmers markets and local farmers. It is a great place to have these conversations. Farmers love to talk about this stuff. So it's a great place to go to have these conversations. Okay, what's growing right now in the natural light? What could I forage if I was foraging for something in my local environment? Like what's available? And then blocking the artificial light at night using like orange toned blue blockers and making the house darker and dimmer will help you make melatonin, which regenerates and heals your tissues. So if you do have leaky gut or digestive inflammation, your body can start to heal itself at night when you sleep using the melatonin your pineal gland produces.
Yeah. I noticed you had a conversation with someone recently that talked about melatonin and how that can be, there's a lot of misconceptions around melatonin. Some people take it, feel worse. What are your thoughts about melatonin?
Do you know, I always say optimize what your body can make first. Right. And so taking melatonin is a Band-Aid for a lot of people because they don't have their light environment right. So what I hear happen all the time is when people start to get morning light, they get this crazy burst of energy. Now, all of a sudden, it's like they live with motivation and energy in the morning. And then when they block the artificial light at nightfall, so when it's all effectively, it's dark in there or almost dark in their environment using the orange tone blue blockers, then their body starts to make its own hormones. It starts to make cortisol in the morning in the right amount. It starts to make melatonin in the evening in the right amount. And so I always tell people you have to go that route first. And then are there circumstances where I've had clients take exogenous melatonin knowing that they do these circadian things? Yes. So for example, an infection. I've had clients take it during COVID or infections. It's a good therapeutic to be able to use. I've had clients with TBI, so traumatic brain injuries, need massive amounts of melatonin because their pineal gland couldn't make anywhere near as much melatonin as their body needed in order to heal from the brain injury. So there are circumstances when melatonin can be used therapeutically, but never without respecting the circadian rhythm and getting those routines in place first.
Okay. So are there certain times of the day? So people talk about early morning light. I know I've been enjoying, we have this whole daylight savings things here. I'm not sure if you go through those cycles here.
Yeah, we do.
But I love coming into autumn because our daylight savings, you experience it. It's at 6 a.m., but it feels like 7 when it flips back. So I'm enjoying I'm like ready to get up at sunrise here. Sunrise is like literally, to me, completely doable right now. But there's certain times of the day that are particularly potent, would you say? Like particular, is sunset or sunrise, if you're unwell or you've got a lot of issues going on, they're the times you'd want to get up, right?
Yeah. I've keyed in on a couple of windows of time that clients have found to be most beneficial. I myself have found to be most beneficial. But, just because we've keyed in on these times doesn't mean that going outside at any time, at any time you have a chance to get your naked eyes out to the outside, you're going to sync up with the signals, right? That's key. Right. But it does appear that sunrise, which is not always easy on a chronic health journey, chronic fatigue, plus insomnia, like I get it. Sunrise is not always easy. So either clients kind of have to force themselves to get into that routine and start experiencing it, which they'll pretty quickly then adjust to that and be able to wake themselves up earlier and earlier, or at least getting outside within 2 hours of sunrise. That morning sunlight, especially what I call UVA rise, which if anyone wants to know when that is in your area, get the Circadian app. There's a link in my bio to download it. It was started by a guy who lives in New Zealand, Bastian, who absolutely understands the benefits of circadian rhythms. And you can just program in your geographic location anywhere on the planet, and you'll see when the UVA light rises in your area. area. And what that means is that that's when the sun is high enough in the sky that bright UVA light starts to appear. And that does all of that neurotransmitter signaling that I talked about earlier. It does a lot of different neurochemical or chemical signaling in the brain with a big protein called POMC. So it can improve inflammation, it can improve fat burning, it can improve libido, energy levels. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen with that. So if you can figure out to key in on that UVA rise, that is especially potent. And then yes, typically sunset, at least going outside at sunset or acknowledging that sunset has happened in your environment by keeping it dim, by blocking the artificial light, right? So whether you do it because you're outside or whether you're just recognizing, okay, the day is over, I got a signal to my brain that the day is over, and you put those routines in place to do that. That's very, very key.
Okay, great. So the thing that I'm experiencing right now, we've just gone from selling a property on 40 acres, was off grid. One would say why, many reasons, but we've just got, and in the middle of that, we're living in an apartment while we wait to find the right place that we're going to purchase. And so I really missed having my feet on the ground. And at the same time, we're quite high up and we've got beautiful views of the Blue Mountains here in western part of Sydney. And so I have sunset just on one side of the apartments, all windows, big sliding doors. So you can't escape the sky. Like I'm suddenly living in this position where the sky is constantly changing and sharing itself with you, as opposed to being on the ground. You know, you don't, I don't know, you have to kind of look up. It sounds really stupid, but when you're up in the sky, it's just bang. It's just at you the whole time. And so every time I just know my body, I feel like even though I'm not on the ground, I feel like my body knows what time it is, more so now living in this apartment. And when we move out, I will miss having the sky so prevalent and just so, you know, you just sit on the, sometimes I get stuck out here just in awe of the sky and how it changes and the clouds, and one day to another it's just like this show of like who needs to watch an exciting movie. It's just like, wow, look at that light, look what that's doing, and so beautiful. So I just encourage people to take that time to just sit and be in it and watch it. And I do find that now that I'm doing that and spending time in it, I feel a lot calmer. I'm sleeping so much better. But my biggest thing was not realizing that stepping out in the morning, like I'd go out with my morning coffee prior to knowing about all this information, and the first thing you do is pop your sunglasses on.
I know.
So
I
now,
used to do that too.
you know, grab my coffee, put my sunnies on, and I'd sit out in the sun. Obviously, I would have been getting some benefits. But I tell you, the first week of walking out without my sunglasses, I felt like I might have been Dracula's, you know, great granddaughter or something, because I just was like, oh God, but how do people live without their sunglasses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you just adjust. And now I think, oh yeah, my sunglasses. Oh, yeah. But you do eventually adjust. But that's something people need to possibly work on as well, is removing the sunglasses a bit more, right?
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. No, that used to be me. My eyes used to be so sensitive to light, and I just assumed, oh, you know, everyone tells me I've got light blue eyes. That's what I have to do. I'm always going to be sensitive to the sun. But no, my pupils weren't responsive, right? Like just like a muscle, my pupils were like, what? I just had to retrain it, right? And now the only time where the sun is ever too intense for me is if I'm on the ski slopes or like, you know, snowshoeing, and there's the bright sun coming down on reflecting off of the snow. That is still too intense for me. But other than that, my eyes adjust beautifully. And I've had that happen again with a lot of clients who are like, wait, it doesn't bother me. The light doesn't bother me once I got adjusted to it. And actually they start to crave it, right? You know, they start to really enjoy what happens when they go outside with naked eyes.
It's so true. And everyone in my house is now starting to get a little bit cooler, which I'm sure everyone's going to be, you know, miffed about, because I didn't understand that the frequencies and the rays didn't come through the glass. So you may have all your windows, you know, like your blinds drawn and the sun's streaming through and you're sitting in the sun. But if the glass is closed, then it's not effective. That's right, isn't it? Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to say, yes, that's correct. But I don't want to be insanely discouraging to people to say it's not effective, because you do get a brightness that's happening, and you do get a change that's happening, right? There is the change of colors that the brain is picking up on. But modern window glass blocks almost all of the infrared light. Again, for like the purposes, modern bulbs and modern glass blocks a majority of the infrared and the UV. There's no UV light. And it just so happens that those are like two really key frequency ranges that our human bodies need for energy and for signaling. So while modern indoor living is energy efficient for the environment, for the building, it's actually energy depleting up for us. So we have to open windows whenever possible. So I'll always have the sunroof open in the car or the windows cracked a little bit, right? Unless it's pouring rain. And so that the light is always coming in, because light will move like water, right? It's not just a particle. I don't just have to be like, right here, you can see that this is a good example, right? That here's a bunch of light streaming through. There's not light here. I don't have to be here the whole time to get the light signaling. Like, my body will key in on it as long as my window is open and I'm allowing all the light in. So if the window is open, I just have to allow the light to enter my space, and my eyes and receptors will pick up on what's there.
That's incredible. I have this beautiful visual of, opening those doors and the light coming in, like you said, like water, and moving in like that. So, now our household, as soon as we're up, the whole place, windows are open, it's just like, and you just, I don't know, fresh air, that too, but the same, it's so invigorating to have all that light streaming in, and it feels so different than a house closed up and not allowing those frequencies just to flow through. I try to have the windows open as much as I can during the day, right up until sunset. It's just completely life-changing. And speaking about water, now I know we're coming close. We've got about 10 minutes to 8, and I know you've got a busy day. So I want to dive into this at another time, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I really want to dive into easy water, because I'm just like becoming a little bit obsessed with how powerful, like the concept of water in the body and easy water. Can you touch just a tiny bit on what easy water is, how light actually affects the water in our bodies, and why it's important for us?
Yes. So like easy water in 10 minutes, right here. I'll try it. Water is key, right? And we recognize, it's pretty mainstream, that the majority of our bodies is water, 60 to 70% water by molecular count. So not percentage, but 99 out of every 100 molecules in the body is H2O. So wait a second, that's a ton of water that I have. And that water doesn't exist in the same way that you see water in a glass that just kind of sloshes around, and we call that bulk water. Water actually structures and organizes itself inside of us anytime it comes into contact with a biological surface or a hydrophilic, water-loving surface, which it's everywhere. The exterior of all my cells, the interior of my cells is packed with all of these hydrophilic proteins and molecules and organelles. And so water in my body actually structures itself, and when it structures itself into something called exclusion zone water, EZ water for short, which when it does that, it actually creates a lattice, a hexagonal lattice arrangement of the H's and the O's. So picture these almost like honeycomb sheets of H2Os organizing themselves next to all biological surfaces. And the research out of Dr. Pollack's lab showed that water was no longer neutrally charged. When it was measured to have a negative charge. Water in a glass is neutral, right? Like not positive, not negative. So that exclusion zone water is negatively charged. And there's a concentration of positive charge that lines up directly next to it. And his lab put a microelectrode in the positive zone, a microelectrode in the electron or the exclusion zone, and he lit a light bulb. So this really is paradigm shifting. It means that we have potential energy around every biological surface in our bodies, hydrophilic surface in our bodies. And that we realize through various phase changes and the structuring and binding of water to things like our proteins, we use that exclusion zone water to drive work inside of our bodies. And sunlight, specifically the infrared range of light that can get absorbed very deeply by my body, that can actually expand the exclusion zone fourfold. So I liken it to what happens when a cell phone battery starts to decrease, right? You have to start, the cell phone has to say, okay, no, you can't have the brightness up like that anymore. No, you can't do this, download this video. You can't update this, do this update right now. No, we don't have enough energy. And I liken that same thing that's happening with the water battery inside of us. We live indoors in a very infrared deficient lifestyle because we don't have it coming through the glass and we don't have it coming in through the bulbs. And so we're basically shrinking this exclusion zone water battery that's meant to be charged all the time because we're designed to live in natural light. So by going outside and getting into the infrared, which is there from sunrise till sunset, you will always then get this charge and this expansion of your exclusion zone water, which translates to more free energy that my body can use to do work.
And that just almost changed the paradigm around most people thinking that the mitochondria in connection to easy water and things like that, it's only there to create energy via food. And yet I'm understanding more and more that it's us walking out as this, almost imagining it like a solar battery, walking outside and we're like this huge solar battery. And unless we're exposing ourselves to the light like a solar battery, then we're unable to charge all of these incredible processes inside our systems. And yet, and food's probably down the chain now as importance in terms of that creation of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, research is pointing towards food as being maybe 1/3 of the electrons we need. But we get energy and electrons from so many other ways. So like you said, the sunlight and the water, that interaction, touching our bare feet to the earth, we pull the earth's electrons into our bodies. So there's a lot of ways that we can get energy that don't involve food. And we've really sold the mitochondria short to say they only use electrons from food and that's the only way we get energy. And we've sold our bodies short to say that ATP is the only currency of energy in the body, when really we now know that this exclusion zone water is a massive source of potential energy.
That's absolutely incredible. My mind is just blown as to how incredible the human body is, how much more potential we have. And at the same time, I'll sit with clients and say, right, I want to have a list now. Before even getting into anything nutritional, let's just start changing some really minor things around your environment. And it just seems like I still amazed that it's almost like pulling teeth to encourage people to get up a little bit earlier. It's really like just 5 minutes, or but I'm so busy. Like it's just a bizarre paradigm, and I look forward to inspiring people. It's partly why, well, a lot of why I really want to come on and talk with you today, to inspire the people that I know and others to understand that it's not just hyperbole, or just talking about something that's possible. It's actually the reality of how our system is working, and start to get excited about the science of it. And I love that you're making it so accessible for people. And I just thank you so much for making science fun and not something that people think that they can't understand or access. So thank you so much for that. Is there anything that you would, top things that you would say to people that would be really great to do to get started with this type of thing? And just tell us where they can reach you, get more information about your courses. I know you have short courses.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I would say is just start applying it. Don't overthink it. And don't look for the device that you need to buy. Just use natural light to start off with. That's why why I had to dive this deeply into the science, was because it sounded too woo and too good to be true. And it's like, yeah. But really, once I understood how light signaled all of these pathways, it made me so much more motivated to go outside at key times of the day. And so just get started. Anytime you can get outside in morning light, do it. If it means driving with your windows down a little bit, or at work or at school drop off, stopping for 30 seconds to sky gaze, start doing it. That's really going to start to signal up the circadian rhythm that we need to have intact for our body to know what to do. So that's number one. Just get started. And then if you're interested in diving deeper into this, obviously my Instagram is where I try to put as much of this information out. They only allow me 2,200 characters in a caption though. So dang it, right? Like, and so I'm always, I have to edit every post. I have to edit because it's like 5,000 characters. So I have created courses. I have 3 signature workshops right now. I've got mitochondrial healing, quantum connective tissue, and the hydration masterclass that really weave these topics together. I also have a signature course that goes into all of those things, plus a lot more, including the electrons and earthing and red light therapy, and a couple of supplement recommendations if you're interested, sleep optimization, non-native EMFs, you name it, right? So that's called Quantum Foundations. And if you're a practitioner, I have partnered with the Quantum Biology Collective, which is a worldwide organization looking to certify practitioners, and we've been doing so for the past 1.5 years in applied quantum biology, and we're starting actually a new cohort soon. So there's a link in my bio if you want to look for details to that. So if you're interested, we want to get this information in as many practitioners' hands as possible, because as you know, Angela, this isn't about us telling you that what you're doing is incorrect. It's about us sharing with you another set of tools in your toolbox that you can use with clients in order for them to see results.
Exactly. Well, you'll see me on that new course, that's for sure. Can't wait. And I've got a huge connection, particularly here in Australia, and starting to connect to places like Italy, with colleges over there that connect to the work that I do. And I just would love all of my kinesiology friends and practitioners to get in and get this work, because it's literally, it's like a food pyramid. I feel like we've had it all upside down.
Yes, exactly.
I think we integrated.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh my God, so I'm excited to get this work out to all the kinesiologists and energy workers and people, any type of clinician it's just base level. Like you say, like, you're always going to be, unless they're doing these things already by nature, they could have a job with them outside a lot, or, farmers or whatnot. But, at the end of the day, like, I would think most of us are struggling with, even if you're up, they're not stopping to get that morning light or putting the sunglasses straight on, and slip, slop, slap. Like, that's just, we're bombarded with particularly in Australia, people are in the beach with their full bodies covered because they're so afraid of the sun. So
I know, and there's a very safe way to get it, and that signaling is key. We're missing the signaling, so it can't be one extreme or the other. We can't go. I'm not saying we have to bake all day every day. That's not necessary either. But we can't keep the sunglasses on all the time or the sunscreen on all the time, because we need those signals. So this course really helps practitioners dive into, what does a sun protocol, like, how do I create a sun protocol for my clients? How do I support their mitochondrial health, which are prime receivers of that information from sunlight? So it really comes down to this foundational layer that I've just found so transformative in clinical practice.
And understanding, like, even that small window of melatonin, oh my goodness, like, it's so important for healing the gut. People have got all these issues. I'm like, my goodness, unless they're doing these things, they're really selling themselves short. So thank you so much for coming on today. I'm hoping that you'll come on with me again and dive a bit more into, because I know there's so many other topics that we could talk about, and I just cannot wait to chat to you again. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have an absolutely beautiful day, Carrie.
Thank you, Angela. This was such a pleasure. I'd absolutely love to connect again on Instagram. This was so much fun. Then thank you for adjusting your schedule to accommodate this for me as well. I'm so appreciative.
Apologies with my inability to get, you think you've got it right, and then it's just not right. And I'm so glad I was up getting my son.
Yeah, I know. I was so grateful too. I was like, okay, we're going to make this work.
Thank you so much. You have an absolutely wonderful day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.